Energy consumption is the amount of energy or power used by a given process or system. The United States gets 81% of its total energy from oil, coal, and natural gas.
We also depend on those fuels to heat our homes, run our vehicles, power industry and manufacturing, and provide us with electricity.
Globally, from 2000 to 2012, coal was the largest source of energy with the largest growth. The use of oil and natural gas also had considerable growth, followed by hydropower and renewable energy. Renewable energy, however, grew at a rate faster than any other time in history during this period.
In contrast, Americans use many types of energy. Petroleum, natural gas, coal, renewable energy, and nuclear electric power are primary energy sources.
About 65% of U.S. generation of electricity is from fossil fuels, about 15% from renewable energy, 20% from nuclear energy, 34% from natural gas, 30% from coal, and 20% from nuclear.
Because coal is the most used energy source in the U.S., it's important to look at the advantages and disadvantages of using it. Some advantages of using coal are that it produces energy very fast. It's cheap because the infrastructure for coal mines is already in place. And it also requires very little processing and refining to make it usable. As well, it stimulates the economy. Many small towns and regions depend on coal as their economic backbone.
However, there are some arguments against coal for its disadvantages, such as ecosystem destruction when mines are put in place. To isolate carbon is very expensive. Subsurface mining puts people at risk in mining accidents and can cause economic challenges with healthcare for the miners. Also, long-lasting disease that comes from working around coal for many years. And of course, the emissions of carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, traces of mercury, and other toxic metals that create greenhouse effect and contribute to the warming of the planet.
Some advantages of using oil as a fossil fuel is that it's ideal for cars, trucks, jets, and transportation. It's quick ignition and a huge storehouse of energy, high energy to mass ratio. It burns cleaner than coal and currently is very cheap and available.
However, some people believe that the disadvantages of oil outweigh the advantages. For instance, it's less efficient than coal. It also requires a significant process called refining, which creates more emissions. Another disadvantage is that it can damage ecosystems, and while it is abundant right now, the supply is decreasing, and over the next 40 years, it's going to become very low. It also has the second highest CO2 level of all fossil fuels. Hydrogen sulfide is also released when oil is burnt, which causes acid rain, and it can't be used to generate electricity. So Hope, where do fossil fuels come from?
Good question. Fossil fuels, such as coal, oil, and natural gas, are formed from organic material over the course of millions of years. Fossil fuels have fueled U.S. and global economic developments over the past century since we've had the technology to access them.
So Lila, what are fossil fuels?
Well, one common fossil fuel is coal. Coal is a black or brownish rock that's mined from the ground. We burn coal to create energy, and sources of coal are ranked depending on how much carbonization they've gone through and how much energy they can produce.
Another common example of fossil fuel is petroleum. Petroleum is a liquid, also called oil or crude oil. It is trapped underground by rock formations. They're used. How much of them do we use?
Well, households are accounted for 21.8% of total energy consumption in the United States.
And the average U.S. household used 90 million British thermal units in 2009, or nearly 50% more energy than the average car in a year. Homes built since 2000 only use 2% more energy on average than older homes, despite being on average 30% larger.
And an average household uses energy that's released an estimated of 21,355 pounds of CO2. To put this number in perspective, the average household is responsible for releasing more than twice as much CO2 emissions as the average car per year.
So what is the future of fossil fuels?
Well, some say it depends a lot on the current administration. The Trump administration is doing everything it can to encourage drilling of fossil fuels on federal lands and everywhere else. They are revising regulations on methane release, deep-sea drilling rigs, and anything that they can think of to lower the cost of drilling.
Also, Trump and his administration are trying to be the biggest fossil fuel exporters in the world. Big oil exports, big nuclear button, big crowds.
However, there are many people who are against the expansion of fossil fuels in America. Particularly on the left side of the aisle, there are pushes for more clean air, water, and oil drilling legislation that could help move the country into a future with more renewable energy and less drilling for fossil fuels. These movements are similar to the ones that arose in the 60s when the drilling of fossil fuels became very important to the U.S. economy.